Hello and welcome to the video. I have a project that I made over this weekend that I'm pretty excited about that I wanted to show you guys. Basically what I'm going to be doing inside this video is I'm going to be going over the code for the project, talking about essentially the way that it works, how you would be able to use this on your own computer if you wanted to, and what that sort of would look like. It's not going to be step-by-step instructions, but it's going to be a brief overview of what it is, what technologies I used, that sort of thing. Just to start off with, I'm going to get myself out of the view so then you can see my whole entire screen. I'm going to be telling you about the technologies I used inside this project here really quick, so that if you want to use it yourself, these are some of the things I'm pretty sure you would have to download. So this is using the Twitch API, and this is programmed in Python. So you would have to have Python installed. I believe you'd have to have Twitch API installed. You would also have to go through the Twitch developers portal in order to be able to get the client secret and the client ID. So those are two things that you would need to get yourself from your own Twitch account. And then also this uses PyTorch, so you would have to have PyTorch installed as well. So now that we've gotten the technologies out of the way, I'm going to be showing you basically what this program does and all of the different parts of it and how exactly they work. So to start off with, the first thing that I had made was a chatbot. The chatbot can work independently of the Twitch connection if you want it to. You would just have to run it inside of the terminal. I'm also going to be showing the GitHub repo for this project. The GitHub repo link is going to be in the description, so you can clone the repo yourself and run it locally. Everything works locally for the chatbot, and then the only thing that you need in order to connect it to a Twitch channel is the two things that I mentioned earlier, which are the client ID and the client secret. You would also need the name of the target channel, and these are all stored inside the .env file. Now, because of the nature of those codes, I'm not going to be showing the .env file here, but basically, well, all it does is it has the client ID right here, and the client ID equals a string, and this is a string that I would be getting directly from Twitch through the developers portal. Same thing for the client secret and then target channel. So you would just have to go and get your own one of those. So the chatbot, basically we're importing Torch, and then we are importing transformers from the Blender tokenizer and the Blender bot for conditional generator. So from transformers, we're importing both of these things. This is in order to make it so that BlenderBot works. So BlenderBot was released by Facebook. It's a chatbot that does a pretty good job of being conversationalist. And so that's why I decided to use this here. So this is importing this directly from Hugging Face, which is a website that has a bunch of different repositories for all different kinds of models and stuff. So this is the path. BlenderBot was made by Facebook, and it's released under Apache 2.0, so it's a pretty good model to use for this use case. I'm able to run it locally as well, and I don't have some pretty insane GPU. I just have a 1080 Ti, so a little bit of a dated GPU, but you can get them for pretty cheap nowadays. So that's what I use. I am able to also use the 1 billion distilled, the 1 billion parameter distilled, but it's a little bit too slow for me. If you have a better GPU, then you'll probably get faster results, but this is what I'm using. You just comment this out and then uncomment this out if you want to use it instead. It's going to have to download the first time that you use it, so it might take a minute, but I think that it does a pretty good job formulating responses. So this is just setting the model, and we're using the BlenderBot for conditional generation that we imported from transformers and feeding it the model name, which is this right here. And then we're also using the tokenizer. Now, as I understand it, the tokenizer is what essentially breaks down the sentences into sentences that the BlenderBot would be able to understand. So we're setting the tokenizer as the BlenderBot tokenizer from this specific model. We are also setting running to true Now, this is in order to stop the while loop. So if we set this to false, then the while loop doesn't run anymore and it ends the chatbot. This print statement right here, basically just saying whether or not CUDA is available. CUDA is the GPU. I'm using an NVIDIA GPU, and so that's why it's CUDA. And then this print statement is just letting us know inside the terminal that the chatbot is working. So if the init function works correctly, then we're going to get a print statement that says chatbot initialized. If not, then we are going to have issues. So, but we would be able to troubleshoot from there. This just lets us know that this is good. So we have a text input function, which just essentially takes the input of what you type in and returns what you typed in. We have a text output function that takes in the utterance. So it takes in your input, which is fed into the function down here, but I'll be going over that in a second. But essentially it feeds that back into the function. And then if the utterance is by, running is false. So that's what turns off the chatbot and just sort of ends it. Chatbot says by, and then we return out of this thing. Otherwise, it tokenizes the input. So it takes the utterance and then it returns a tensor. So it just tokenizes. And then the result is the inputs with a max number of tokens of 1,000. You can adjust this depending on what you want, but I have it set to 1,000, and I think that that's pretty reasonable. It just keeps it from basically generating massive responses. And then the response is going to be the decoded result from the tokenizer, and we're grabbing the first thing within the decoded results, or the first thing of the result. And then I'm going to uncomment this out really quick for the demonstration, and I'm also going to uncomment this really quick for the demonstration. So if you want to just use the chatbot, you just uncomment this, and then the chatbot will run just as a chatbot locally. And so this text output function is going to return a response. Now, we don't need the return response just for the chatbot, but that's going to be for the Twitch portion of this. So the run function, which is just what we activate here, is just a loop. So while self.running, so while this is true, then we're going to be taking the output and we're going to be feeding it the input. So we run the input runs, and then we feed that. So the input runs, input's up here, and then we feed that into the output. So pretty straightforward. I'm just going to show you really quickly what this looks like. I'm going to make this box a little bit bigger. So all you really need to do is just run the Python code. So we're going to be typing in Python. You might have to type in Python 3. It just depends on what your default version of Python is. I believe that Python uses the default, whereas Python 3 make sure that it's using Python 3. So if you have like Python 2.7 or something like that installed, you'll want to make sure that you have Python 3 installed. So we're going to do Python and then Blender chatbot.py. And so this just runs the Python file using Python. And when we run this, it's going to take a minute in order to initialize a chatbot. And then just to show you guys, these are the system stats that I have running. You can see how much of my computer's resources it's using whenever I feed it a response. It's taking up about 2 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know exactly what it's using on the GPU, but we're going to say, hello, how are you doing today? And then when we feed that into the chatbot, fires up the CPU, and then it quiets down there for a second, but it says, I'm doing well, thank you. I hope you are as well. How are you? ? And so you can just have a conversation with this chatbot if you want to. I am doing great. And it's going to respond with, that's great to hear. What are you doing to make yourself feel good about yourself today? And then bye in order to end the conversation, and boom, we're back into the terminal window. And then also you'll notice that it was at like 10.3 gigabytes and now it's using 8.6. So a little bit less of the computer's resources. So that's the chatbot. That's the chatbot working. It's running entirely locally. on the computer, and again, released under Apache 2.0, which means that you can use it for essentially whatever you want to, which is pretty nice. And it is able to at least engage, which is really cool. So the next portion of this is the Twitch portion here. And I'm actually going to delete this user credentials file right here, just so that you can see essentially what it's going to look like when you initially run the Twitch chatbot. So this is all the stuff that needs to be imported from the Twitch API in order to be able to use the chatbot. Async IO, from what I understand, just makes it so that you can run functions asynchronously. .env is what lets us load up information from the file that gets created when we start up the chatbot, or from Blender Chatbot, which is the file right here. We're importing the chatbot, which is the class of chatbot, which is what our Twitch is going to be interacting with. You can see my previous Twitch interactions in here. So going through what this code does exactly, you also actually probably need to have SQLite installed. I'm not sure if I installed that manually or if it came with my operating system, but I didn't have to install it directly, but you might have to install that individually. So we have the load.env. This just makes it so we can load files that are inside of the directory, load the files inside of the same directory, which we need to access this .env file in order to gain access to the Twitch channel. So like I showed earlier over here, you need to go into the Twitch Developers Hub in order to be able to get your client ID and your client secret. And then when you clone the repo, you're going to have to make a .env file. And then within it, you're just going to, I'll just show you right here, create a client ID equals, and then put in the string of what your client ID is, what you get from Twitch Developer Portal. Same thing for the client secret. And then for target channel, same thing, except the name of the channel that you are trying to connect to. So those things, for in your case, it's not really going to matter if you just put in the information directly in here. But if you upload this to GitHub, like if you upload your own version of this to GitHub, you want to make sure that it's in an env file so that it doesn't get uploaded to GitHub, so then people don't have access to your app on Twitch. So it's just a safety precaution. And then the scope is that we're having it read chat and edit chat. So this part right here, AI equals chatbot, this is just initializing a new instance of chatbot. And then in here, this would have been in this over here, but we have this commented out because we want to make sure that everything essentially other than the instance of chatbot is localized inside of this file. So we're making a new chatbot instance and we've imported it from right here. So first we try and connect to a database, and then inside of the database, this is SQL. So it's a scripting language for connecting with SQL-based databases. So this is just basically selecting name from master, where table, and name equals users. So basically it's looking for a user's table, and if a user's table doesn't exist, then it's going to make the table. Otherwise, it's not going to make the table because the table already exists. And as you can see, this is the database right here, which I also am not uploading. So when you initially run this, it would make a database for you. And then the other thing that's needed in order to make this work is it has to access everything through a Twitch channel. So the Twitch channel that I'm using, or the Twitch account that I'm using, is LlamaChopBot, and it's also the name of the bot here. You would want to change this to whatever you make your bot to. I made a separate Twitch account for this, but Llama Chop bot is an inside joke where Llama Chop is one of the hats that I wear. So it seemed like a fitting name for the bot. So we have Llama Chop bot here. And so what this is going to do is it's going to try and find the user credentials JSON or JSON file, which as you can see here doesn't exist. So when this doesn't work, when we get a file not found error, then it's going to say user credentials not found and user credentials equals none. So that is related to when we initially do the connection down here at the bottom. If user credentials is not none, then it pulls from the file. Otherwise, it creates new credentials. Now, I just did this in order to keep me from having to sign into my Twitch account over and over and over again when I was doing testing. This doesn't necessarily need to be here, but it helps keep from having to sign in over and over and over again, which was just getting very annoying. And so next we have all of the functions that run through the bot. So we have an on ready. So once everything is all set up, then we join the target channel. So this in my case is Leisure Llama because that's my Twitch channel. And so this just, once it's ready, it joins the channel. This runs whenever there's a message and it inputs the chat message. And so I have some notes in here for myself, but basically if a user doesn't exist in the database, it'll add them, and you can read the comments if you want to. I'll do a little bit better job adding some comments in here as well, so you can know a little bit more about what exactly every single function does. But we have our connection to the database right here, and it's just basically connecting to app.db, which is this database right there. And then the message user is the currently connected user. So message.user.name pulls from this message and it checks the username. And if the username is none, then it inserts the user in and gives them 10 points. So this point system is just for user engagement, and I'll be going over that in more detail later. But essentially, this is grabbing the current user that sent the message. And then if the user exists inside the mods table, then it sets mod to true and mod to false. So this is what we're doing to limit the abilities of users to be able to execute certain commands, where if they're a moderator, they won't be able to do it. And if they're a moderator, they will be able to do it. And if they're not a moderator, they won't be able to do it. And this right here is just essentially a series of if statements that check the start of the text of the message for specific characters. So if the message starts with Llama Chop bot, then it's going to send the message over to the bot command handler. Whereas if it starts with points, then it sends it to the points command handler, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to add any more commands to this list, then all you have to do is put in an else if message text starts with, and then what you want that command to start with, and then put in here await, and then the name of the function that you want to execute. So I'm going to be going through all of the commands here really quick just to show you sort of what they do and how they work. And then also another important note is that every single time you access the database and try and make some changes to it, like right here, this is going to execute a user into the users table and give them 10 points. So we want to make sure that whenever we execute anything on the database, we commit the changes and then we close the connection. So committing the changes just make sure that the database updates, and then closing the connection helps keep any sort of issues from arising later on where we have this sort of open connection and then maybe trying to open up another connection. So we want to make sure that we just close off the connection so that one connection is only really doing like one thing. So to start off with, we have the help command, which just basically replies to the message, and it lists the commands. All right, this isn't an exhaustive list of the commands, but this is just an example. And then we have another function, the bot command handler, which just essentially handles the messages to the chatbot. So basically, we cut off the first 15 or 16, the first 16 characters of the message, which is going to be the @LlamaChop bot. If you change the name of the bot, then you're going to want to make sure that you also change the number of characters that you're cutting off, so you're not accidentally either not cutting off enough or not cutting off too much. And then this just prints out the message as it shows up inside of the console, so that you can do like a sanity check to make sure you're cutting off the correct amount of information. And then reply is AI, which is the instance of chatbot that we initialize up here. So we're accessing our instance of chatbot, and we're accessing the text output. So that's going to be this function right here. So we're accessing it, and we're feeding in an utterance, and the utterance equals true message. So the true message is the message minus the @ right here. So we're feeding that in, and then we're waiting for a reply, which is just going to give the username of the user that sent the message, and then we're going to be sending in the reply. And if you noticed in here, when we were talking about the chatbot earlier, it sends the message response with S tags. And I don't want the S tags to show up inside of the responses from the chatbot. So we just cut those off right here. So it cuts off the first 3 and the last 4 letters inside of the message, so that it just shows up as natural text. And then the next command is a points command handler. So this is activated with !points. And it connects to the database. It executes and grabs the user and then shows their points. So points is the first part. So because it indexes from 0, it just grabs the number of points and shows them here. We have a add. So this is what adds points. So you have to put in the name of the user that you want first, and then the number of points that you want to add. This grabs those 2 chunks of the message and saves them equal to these. We're connecting to the database. We execute an update that adds the points. The first question mark is the number of points. The second question mark is the name, and we're just fetching 1. And then we commit those changes, and then we close. So same thing here for the remove. It's the remove points command. Same thing, we have the name, we have the points. So next we have the quote command. So what this does is it returns a random quote, so you can save quotes inside the database. So you're going to be we're selecting for the ID and the quote from the quotes table. The quote is the text, the ID is the individually identifiable number for the quote. It's going to grab 1, random 1, and then we close the connection to the database. We print the response. That was just for troubleshooting and just to make sure that you're getting the responses that you want from the database. And then if response is not none, then we're going to be splitting off the ID and the text from the response and putting that inside of the chat. So we can add a quote as well, just cuts off the first 10 characters, and then everything else gets added into the quote, as well as saves the author of who authored that quote. And then it prints out a little message that says it added the quote. This deletes the quote based off of the number that you provide, removed quote. So add mod command adds a user's username to the mods table. which then would allow them special privileges. So we can add the user to the mod list, and then you can also remove a user from the mod list. Now I put in here a little bit of an exception because I don't want the streamer to be able to be taken off of mod from their own bot. So if the name does not equal the target channel, then they can be removed. Else, it's just going to print out name cannot be removed from the mod list. So we commit those changes, we close out, and then gamble gives you a 50-50 shot of either doubling or removing the points that you put in as the number of points you want to gamble. And then duel, 50-50 shot to win points from another user or to lose points from another user. This and this are going to get more fleshed out as time goes on, but for right now, they should technically work. And then this is the function that sort of just initializes the whole thing. Because all of these functions are asynchronous, I don't think the order necessarily matters, but this is just connecting to Twitch. So Twitch equals Twitch client ID, client secret. So that's the connection to Twitch. If user credentials is none, so if the user credential file doesn't exist in here, then we're going to be getting authentication, and then the user credentials are loaded. So you're going to want to be signed into, or you're going to want to sign into or be signed in to the account that's going to be the bot, so that we can get those credentials and then use the bot inside of your chat. Else, so if it's not none, it pulls from the file. If it is none, then it goes in and has you grab them from a window that would pop up, and then it would dump the information into a JSON folder or JSON file. And then it says the Twitch connection is established. And then this initializes the chat of Twitch, which is this right here. And then on ready goes the on ready function, and on message goes the on message function. It starts, and then you would press enter to stop the bot. So we're going to do a quick demonstration of how exactly this works. So we're going to do Python and then Blender, or no, sorry, Python and then Twitch connection.py. We're going to run that. It takes a moment, but it's going to initialize the chatbot. There we go. And once you get signed in, it just basically says, thanks for authenticating with PyTwitch API. You may now close this page. So I'm going to close out of this page really quick, minimize this window. And now it should tell you true. So it's using the GPU. Chatbot initialized. So the chatbot started without any problems. User credentials not found. That's because I deleted the user credentials.json file. User credentials saved. So it saved the JSON file. So now if I disconnect and reconnect, it's just going to use these user credentials until those time out. And then it's going to give an error. You just have to delete the file, start over again. Twitch connection established. So we are established with our connection to Twitch. I'm going to move this window over to here just so that you can see sort of what's being printed inside of the terminal. And then I'm also going to keep this up over here so you can see how it's using my system resources, because this is all being run locally on my computer. Again, eventually I'm going to make it so that it's fairly easy to set up an API, but I wanted to get this working first and then sort of add functionality later. So in order to test this out, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send a message to the chatbot. So we're going to say at LlamaChopBot, because that's the name of the bot. We're going to say, hello, how are you? Or let's say, what is your favorite movie? Let's see if it can respond to this. So we're getting in here. This is the true message. Hello. Oh, whoops. What is your favorite movie? I messed up there. But we get a response from LlamaChopBot down here. And it says Leisure Llama, because I'm the one that sent the message. I don't really have a favorite movie, but I do like action movies. What about you? So we'll say at Llama Chop Bot, my favorite movie is V for Vendetta. Let's see how it responds to this. I've never heard of that movie. What's it about? Is it a comedy? So definitely not a comedy. But as you can see, it's a relatively engaging chatbot that you can just respond directly to using the @ and then it sends the message over to the chatbot, which then prints out the response and puts this into the chat. Now, I can say points, and it'll tell me how many points I have. So it'll reply to me, and it says Leisure Llama has 20 points, right? So the cool thing about this is that it's all saved inside a local database as well. So new users, when they come in, it creates a new entry. The amount of space that it takes up to make new entries is trivial. So the amount of time that it would take in order to actually like fill up a hard drive with information would be forever. And I can manage points from here. So let's just say I want to add points, and then we'll add it to me, Leisure Llama, and we'll add 20 points. So, oh, my Stream Elements bot is still running, but that's fine. So if you look here, Leisure Llama, add points, Leisure Llama 20. Now, if we check points, I have 40 points, whereas before I had 20. So it's updating in real time the number of points that I have inside of the database. So that is essentially the basic functionality of the chatbot. If you want to like add a quote, so if I type, what did I just do? Oh, I put an exclamation point in my code. Okay. I got rid of it, so we're good. So if I want to add a quote, go over here, put in add quote, and we're going to add the quote leisure, or no, we'll do Llama Chop Bot is the best bot. So we added the quote, Llama Chop Bot is the best bot. So now when we type in quote, it gives us number 1, Llama Chop Bot is the best bot. And then this is this is from a previous stream. So this is from the Stream Elements bot, which is the bot I've been using for a while now. I eventually want this bot to be able to take over all of the functionality of the Stream Elements bot. It's going to take a little while, but I mean, I cooked this up over the weekend, so I'll hopefully be able to continue to add functionality to this here. But it responded with the quote, Llama Chop Bot is the best bot. I can say remove quote 1, and then quote isn't going to give anything. Damn, Knob Jockey is right. So it's not going to give anything, and the reason for that is because there's no quotes inside of the quote database anymore because we just removed it. And so this is essentially the basic functionality of the bot and the way that it works. The primary ways in which you would be able to get this working on your own local computer, if you wanted to, just have to make the env file with the variables for client ID, client secret, and target channel. So yeah, that is everything. I'm going to be putting myself back up on the screen. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't in the way during that tutorial. So if you liked the tutorial, feel free to give it a like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload any more videos. I'm going to be putting the repo, I think like I said earlier, I'm going to be putting the repo inside the description down below. So you can go and look at the code, you can download it yourself, and you can hopefully run it. Please let me know down in the comments whether or not you have any issues and what sort of issues you run into, and I'll try and do my best to answer any questions you might have to the best of my ability. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you are able to use this bot for your channel. If you do like the code, please give it a like or give it a star on GitHub. They don't have likes on GitHub, but they do have stars. So give it a star on GitHub. It would mean a lot. And if you have any advice for me, please let me know. I think that this is a fairly unique chatbot in that it has conversational capabilities. The model's released under Apache 2.0, so you can use it for things. It's not just for research purposes, which is great. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.